Neal, good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm ready for this sunshine to be permanent, and I think by the day we're getting closer to spring.
Absolutely. It's looking good. We got a fun episode today, too.
Let's dive into it.
Let's do it.
Recorded live from Louisville, it's Talk About Town, the Louisville podcast. And now, your hosts, Neal Cox and Tad Hennessy.
Hey, Ron White here. I'm nowhere to be found. You're listening to Talk About Town, like I give a...
Today, friend, networking buddy that I've ran into many a times in meetings, and very happy to have Denise Metzger with Surprise Visit as our guest today.
Invite.
Surprise invite. I apologize.
Forgiven.
No, thank you for being our guest today, Denise, and being on Talk About Town with Neal now.
Oh, it'll be great fun.
Yeah, it's
Get ready.
yeah. What you're doing. I'm very interested in, and even personally, I may become a client one day. Hopefully not soon, but we'll stop being cryptic and just kind of explain surprise invite.
Yes. I would say please be a client soon. Because we don't know.
Right.
That's right.
You know, everybody thinks we have more time.
True.
Nobody really feels a sense of urgency, and that's probably one of my biggest hurdles in growing the business is for people to get the idea of not waiting. And it's great fun. It's not like sitting down with a funeral director, or it's not a morbid thing. Like just this morning, somebody tagged me on a Facebook post where somebody said, could somebody help me find a venue for my mom's celebration of life? Probably 20, 25 responses of different venues. Overwhelming this daughter, like as simple as deciding what venue you want to have it at. What song would you like playing from the parking lot as people show up so they know that the party's already started before you get in? Those are simple things that could take so much weight off your family member. Like when I sit down and help people pre-plan celebrations of life, I'm not saying that the event is soon or that I'm even your event planner. I want to create that framework that you share with your family so when the time comes, we don't know, it could be a diagnosis, it could be a car accident, a heart, anything.
No one knows, of course.
And if I don't want to be too harsh in the way that I say it's irresponsible, but it puts so much more on the family by not discussing it today. And it can be, it sounds ridiculous coming out of it can be fun. It can be lighthearted. And there's a whole way of, and I have a different way of that I've come to that reality and to be passionate about that message. My daughter was diagnosed with leukemia at 12 and 2.5 years of chemo and relapse, a bone marrow transplant. We learned to turn everything into a gift from very early on. I heard a voice the day that she was diagnosed. There was no precursor, no warning. She woke up with leg pain. I was a painter at the time. I'm a mother of 5. I didn't rush my kids off to the doctor to get an antibiotic first. I would like see if it run its course or what it was before I would rush off to the doctor. But I talk about instinct and listening to the inner voice often, and the more you listen to it and trust it and follow it, the more you're going to do that. This was like the early days. This was like following your intuition 101 or listening to that spiritual voice 101. Because I went off to work. I gave her a bottle of water, the cordless phone, because like before we all had cell phones, her dad was off work. I'd called the pediatrician already. They said, the flu's going around. If she's hydrated, not running a fever, just keep an eye on her. She'll be okay. I went off to work. But when I got to work, there was that little different than me because I wasn't going to take her. Yeah, it was like, you need to go home and you need to take her in. By 1 o'clock that afternoon, we were headed to Kosare with a bone marrow, with a leukemia diagnosis.
Wow.
I didn't even, when I went home and but her leg pain was getting worse through the day. I don't think I carried her into the doctor, but it was harder for her to walk into the doctor's office. And I didn't think anything of it when they came in and did like a finger prick for blood, which they don't usually do for the flu or a cold. Yep. I wasn't thinking anything about it. Even when they came in and said that finger prick, something went wrong with the blood test and they drew blood, I still didn't think something's up. It was when the nurse came in and said, the doctor's going to see you in her office and I'm going to sit with Janae. And as soon as I went in, the doctor said, is there somebody that you can call and you need to sit down? And she said, Janae has leukemia. You don't even need to go to registration at Cozair. Go straight to the oncology floor. They have a suite waiting for her. Her immunity's too low to be around other people. And we will confirm it with a spinal tap and a bone aspiration in the morning. As we get her in there and they're getting her hooked up, and I don't remember why they would have us be outside while they're getting, but I was out in the hallway processing this whole thing because of how fast it went. Yeah. And I had 5 living children, from the age of like 6 to 14. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking of my 5, she's the weakest one. She can't stand up to the bullies at school. She's not going to be able to stand up to cancer. Mm-hmm. And, what are we going to do? And that inner voice said, the only way she's going to make it is to find one good thing, no matter how much it's surrounded by bad. One good thing and cling to it. I was wired the opposite. I was raised by a perfectionist. We were talking about the Enneagram earlier. My dad was a 1 on the Enneagram. Mm-hmm. And I was following in those footsteps. So I didn't find the one good thing when it was surrounded by bad. I found the one flaw when it was surrounded by good.
Right.
So they say you're motivated by inspiration or desperation. I was pretty desperate to figure out how to rewire myself and lead her. Now, fast forward, she's the reason I have this company, because at 15, she wanted people to be sad or worried about her dying. And she dreamt she was a star in the hospital. And I got this dare. I say, parties are more fun with games. Surprise invite is based on the fact that life's a surprise party. And if you're hosting a pity party, you're missing out on it, right? So I sent out a memo. The dare that came to me, if parties are more fun with games, was to send out a memo that there wasn't going to be a visitation and funeral for this child. She was basically like a mini me. I don't want anything to do with a funeral. I don't want people standing in a visitation line here and I'm sorry for your loss for hours. Like, you're going to mourn and grieve on your own time. We don't need a culture that just doesn't even give you permission to celebrate the life. It's all about mourning the death. Mm-hmm. And so I sent out this memo to everybody. This is before social media. It was like Caring Bridge. Facebook may have just barely been starting then. That we were going to, she had dreamt she was a star in the hospital. So I sent out a memo, no visitation, funeral. We're going to celebrate heaven's newest star with a red carpet premiere of her live tribute video down at the Grand, which is the theater in downtown New Albany. I made it a leukemia lymphoma fundraiser. I had the help of community once we ran with that theme. Like, when I have a theme, you've seen my Wacky Wednesdays. Yes. If I have a theme, I run with it. So I had community that was helping me, to run with it, to see the possibility of what can happen when somebody is getting ready to take their last breath, and that it can be uplifting and fun. I run into people now, and it's been almost 15 years, and we still smile and have an uplifting memory. Nobody's talking about how epic somebody's funeral was.
Well, I love that. I've been to a handful of funerals recently, and I just think, this is not for me. I do not want my friends and family sitting around in a stuffy thing saying how great I was, crying and going home.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
And I mean this with the utmost empathy. And I have an aunt that party hop, so I call passing a party hop, right? It's all part. When I say I run with a theme, it's all around the theme, right? So I don't call it death or dying or passing. It's a party hop. I have an aunt that was like so vibrant and uplifting, and she would have wanted the same thing. She never had the conversation. Mm-hmm. She party hopped in November. It could not have been more because there was no conversation, and the family's just thinking traditional and going, and her husband, older. The obituary could not have been more dry and more bland. The day that she was born, her survivors, the day that she passed. The eulogy wasn't about Wanda. It was like a sermon. Yeah. It was like what the Bible says about death. Nothing about this vibrant life of the party, super fantastic aunt or, family member. And that's what I'm saying. It starts, even if you're not my client, have the conversation. Start dreaming and having fun with it. It can be the most fun thing.
So I actually was at a funeral home on Friday, and it was a horrible situation. It was a young man that took his own life, and a friend of mine's son. But I sat there. They had an 8-hour opening or showing. Visitation, I should say. But I've thought this. I'm like, who is that for? I guess it's for the family, and I understand it's for the family, but I'm trying to think. I think this is a different way to think about it. And my wife and I talked about it in the car driving home. It's like, I don't even know if I want that for myself.
Right.
Or, we all have visions. I think, unfortunately, so many situations are sudden.
Right.
But the pictures, it was extremely well done. But then one of my thoughts leaving there was like, the family had to get together all those pictures,
right.
The burden of doing so.
Exactly.
If you know what I mean. And it was beautiful, but
a lot on them. Well, I tell people, and there is a there is a place that's a medium. If somebody doesn't want, like, my boys aren't going to listen to this. And there was an article. There was an article about a month ago, and it shared some of the details of my celebration. I was like, oh, it's a good thing they don't read and follow me and listen, because that would spoil the surprise. But my celebration of life, my event planner, if I don't have my own team by the time I party hop, I have an event planner now. She knows what my budget is, and she knows what my non-negotiables are. Now, if my boys if I just told them I wanted a party, not a funeral, and I left them with all of that, I guarantee you 100% they're not going to have stilt walkers in the parking lot and aerial ribbon dancers and a tribal drum ceremony when you enter. This is a surprise party for my kids in the future, but it was a beautiful surprise gift for me in the present that I had no idea that it was going to unfold, whether it's the planning and the talking about it and the mission to change our experience around death and dying, or whether it's the videos, that I created for them, because it is going to be sudden and they are going to be taxed. I don't want to tax them financially, emotionally, time-wise, all of it. They know, and it's on that invitation in front of you, they know when the first one gets the call that I am that I have taken my last breath. Mm-hmm. They don't call the brothers and say, Mom's gone, she's dead, we've lost her. They know when they hear it's party time what that means. And they know I have a surprise. They know the event planner's name. They know it's with the insurance policy. They know they're only to set the date and to turn it all over to her and show up. And they will walk in, and my oldest guarantee, when he sees that whole fiasco, is going to roll his eyes and be like, Jesus, she's still here, which is what I want them to know.
Right. Yeah.
And it may not be what they would imagine or even what they would want. Two of them know, and they're ready. Friends that I've talked to are like, can't wait for you to pass, just for you to come to your party. Like, they know things are, and so we're laughing about it. It's not like some heavy, morbid thing. And even the two that it's maybe not their kind of party, they will laugh and giggle and be celebrating the life that I lived more than the fact that it's over. Mm-hmm. And it's really not over. It's over for this body. Right. Like, when people think it's tragic that Janae passed at 15 and say, I'm so sorry for your loss, I don't even let it sit. I thank them, but I cannot lose her. I've lost the opportunity to look at her like I am you and talk to her. I get goosebumps covered all the time. I get little signs from her all the time that she is with me and I have not lost her. She lives in and through everything that I do. Are there times that I miss getting to have this human experience with her? Yes. She wanted to have children. She would be over on holidays when the boys are all over at the in-laws because mom rules, right? Like, where you go on fair enough. When I was a mom, we went to my parents, not as much as his parents, but there are times when I grieve or mourn that she's not here, but it's more like a rain shower. It's not something that has just laden on me so heavy through my life that I can't celebrate the gift of what we have, from the time that we wake up until we go to sleep. Or even, back to the funeral. My dad wanted a funeral, but I had done this life tribute video that I do, which is what I do more than the event planning. Mm-hmm. His video played on a loop in the room next to the visitation. So as long and as taxing as the visitation is, and I don't know who it's good for. I mean, if it's for the family, it's still so draining. They're exhausted emotionally, physically, they're standing, being there for everybody else. But at least the video that I had created for him for Father's Day 3 years ago played in a loop where anybody, if they wanted to step into that room for a couple minutes or sit down and watch the whole 35 minutes, he's on it. He's talking about his childhood and memories and what advice he would give. And there's friends and family members that are sharing stories of him. And I kind of facilitate it so that it's kind of a roast of the person. So people are laughing, and there's bloopers at the end. And it kind of tries to offset the heaviness of the grief and the mourning, in what I'm creating. So there is a way to bring it in to the funeral, but it's so important that we have the conversation and just imagine and play with the theme or the song or the venue and communicate that so it's not all in the family. They at least have a starting place if they don't have somebody that can step in and take care of it. Because I say, if you took a funeral director and a wedding planner and they had a baby, it'd be me.
Right. Huh.
I like that.
I like the whole thing because we avoid even talking about death here lately.
Right. And that's our culture. We've all been conditioned and wired to think that it's going to be sad and heavy and dark. And, that's, like I said, this is bigger than me. I'll be the little tiny iceberg that pops through and hope, but there is a whole death positive movement that's happening and more people that are returning to green burials or, death doulas. And there it is happening where we are working slowly to change the conversation and the expectation and the experience around it so that we know, and I have proof by showing Janae's or talking about mine. And the more that we do it, the more people walk away and say, that's what I want.
Denise, with Surprise Invite, do you, I mean, I don't want to say who your typical clientele is or who you're marketing towards, but what if somebody, I think it's a curse and a blessing, I suppose, is if you are given a terminal illness, because you've heard different situations to where, oh my God, my dad passed. I didn't get a chance to say goodbye because it's sudden, let alone affairs, getting affairs together. But I'm wondering if somebody is given a diagnosis of whatever it may be, 6 months, a year, et cetera, what an amazing opportunity, especially if they're feeling good. Because I know that there's a period of time. I just curious how you would approach a family, or if somebody does find out about Surprise Invite, and I'm purely throwing this out of the blue, they have an 18-month diagnosis. How do you approach them? What would your be?
2 of my most recent clients had metastatic breast cancer. Now, one, the husband reached out to me and wanted me to do a video for her so she could see it living, and then they repurposed it at her memorial. She didn't do like a celebration of life. It was like a little in between the two. The other one was the actual client. Initially, she wanted me to interview her so she could share stories and advice, because she had 2 little ones that she was leaving. But she waited too late, and by the time that we got it on the calendar, she was declining. And so I did tell the family, get a barbecue set so everybody shows up in one place, and I'll come and I'll get one at a time, just pull them out on the porch, ask them a story, ask them a 1-word description. And in 3 days, I had that flipped around so that she could have that video and they could use it later. And I will say I feel like there's always a 2-sided coin. Yeah. I tell people, Janae's the one that paid the price for 3 years to give us time to get ready. If somebody passes suddenly, they didn't suffer.
That's right.
And there's more on it. It's always a 2-sided thing. And you can always find gratitude and focus on what you're grateful for of those 2-sided coins. Surprise Invite exists because in 2016, I thought I did have a sense of urgency, so I try to be fair with people. I had a sense of urgency. I thought I was getting ready to party hop. I was married to somebody that I knew if I didn't have it figured out, he would go to the funeral director, go down the checklist. My boys would experience exactly what I did not want them to. And so I was on a mission to figure out how I could have this celebration of life and video for them. So I did have a sense of urgency. Now, just 2 years ago, I had another experience where I thought I had 2 weeks. This is a crazy story. I'll try to say it really fast. If I see an animal and it pops up, I look up what the meaning of an animal is, like the symbolism of an animal is. It was the first day of Lent a couple years ago. I was going to use the container, even though I'm not practicing Catholic I was still going to use the container as a transformative season for me. And I grew up, doing Lent and giving things up. And so I had gone through this whole my own Denise way of Ash Wednesday, getting ready for Lent, what my commitments were, and all that. That night, I'm checking my Blink camera, and a sparrow has flown up 3 times to my Blink camera, right to the camera, flies off. Minute later, flies up, looks at the camera, 3 times in 3 minutes. I'm a little weird. I'm going to look up the symbolism of sparrow. That's how I do.
Absolutely.
Sparrows, new seasons, little bird that works hard, joy, all this stuff. I'm like, yes, I just had this whole little ceremony ritual. Thank you, sparrow. 3 days later, or Friday, I'm up in my office, and you can hear my neighbors out the window, their driveways, right there. And I'm hearing this weird sound. I'm working, but I'm hearing this weird sound, working. I'm like, what are they doing? I turn around, there's a sparrow, knocking on my AC and my window as if it's a hummingbird. It's hovering there, knocking with its wings. And I'm like, cute, saw you or your cousin 3 days ago. Yeah, joy, spring, new beginnings, yay. I turn around and go back to working. It drops down on the windowsill and starts pecking with its beak on the accordion pieces on your window unit. Mm-hmm. It starts pecking. I can see its silhouette, its beak, pecking. I'm like, well, you're not coming in. That's weird. And it freaks me out. So bye. I turn around and go back to typing. It goes to the other side of the AC, starts pecking on the accordion on the other side. What do we do? Pick up my phone, Google sparrow trying to get my attention. Pulls up this Norwegian folktale that if a sparrow makes eye contact with you, I feel like it did 3 times in the Blink here. If a sparrow makes eye contact with you and is trying to get your attention before it flies away, there's going to be a death within 2 weeks. Well, okay, I'm not afraid of death. I'll make peace with worst case scenario. This is going to sound like what you said, morbid or whatever, but I've learned if there's something you're concerned about or worried about or distracted about, a what if that could happen, go face it. You may or may not happen, but if you do, it won't be. I'm not going to be shocked by it, right?
Yeah.
So my dad had been having health problems. He's up in his years. I thought maybe this is before he party. Maybe he's getting ready to party hop. I have a son that's in the military. He's facing every day. Okay, maybe something's. I had a daughter-in-law that was pregnant. Maybe there's going to be I have a son that's been suicidal and depressed before he transitioned, and he's in France, happy now. But I don't know what is going on in his mind. And it wasn't lost on me that it might be me.
Mm-hmm.
So I went down the whole list. Very bizarre. I know. I wasn't super distracted by it. I went back to working. That night I'm scrolling on Facebook again, and there's somebody's just typed, "Live as if you're going to die within 2 weeks." And I thought, well, holy heck, it's me. It's not anybody else. And I was more alive that 2 week. Friends were like, "You're really thinking about this too much." I'm like, think about it. If it's true, I don't know. Mm-hmm. And if it is, it would be a waste for me to not take advantage of knowing. And it was a really interesting experiment. I was like, do I tell my boys? Do I not tell my boys? Are they going to be mad at me that I knew and didn't tell them? Or do I just surprise them because they know, because it's
sure.
So I would say it's a gift. And it's always going to be in the perspective. Everybody has a choice on how they choose, and it may not seem like a gift at the time. I tell people I used to call myself a black sheep, and now I call myself a Tasmanian unicorn. I know that I'm wired very differently and uniquely, and I know how it happened, and I'm grateful for it. And it doesn't always resonate with people where they are, But I would say, based on that it's nice to know and to get your things in order for your family. But the majority of us aren't going to know. And that's why I say, please have the conversation now. And you can be the one that leads it and facilitates it so that it is fun and lighthearted and truly a party. I had first of the year, I got a call from somebody in the chamber, and their mom had passed, and they were working with a funeral director. They were day 4 of working with funeral home when they found a notebook, because she wrote it down, but she didn't have the conversation, that she wanted a party, not a funeral. And she wanted wine and country music and lots of color. And gratefully, we found out in time that I could produce that for her and bring her to life in that way. But the conversation is so important. And even with those little things, like the venue, you could just start and say, this is the venue I want, and this is what I want the party to look like. And at least they have something to go on if they don't have the event planner to carry it out. But I would, encourage that too.
Mm-hmm. That's smart.
Yeah, it's just a different way of thinking. But I think if you did line up people that were open-minded, most people are like, yeah, I'd rather have this. But if they're never asked or even express their feelings,
Why do we always do the old sad funeral thing? What culturally about us makes that the default? And almost, probably 99.9% of funerals are like that.
Right. Well, here's another way to look at it too. Yeah, because I have a funeral director friend. He's like, I'm thinking about revamping my funeral home, and you could do it. I'm like, no offense, John, but it's still going to feel like a funeral home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's still not going to feel like an event space that's light and bright and all that. And here's another way to look at it party-wise, though. I'm not the type of there are lots of people like to throw their own party, right? Like have a birthday party. They're going to turn 40, 50, whatever.
Yeah.
Throw their own. But I'm not that type of person, one. 2, I'm never going to have a budget for a party like my policy is for my final expense. So it's a bigger budget, and I can create the party that I would to celebrate a birthday, only it's for my kids. It's not for me. I get a big kick out of laughing about what I created for them, and it is more like my personality than it's what they would create. But you can look at it like that, if it's all in the perspective and the way you frame it. And you can frame it like it's a party you would throw while you're alive. And some people want to make, if they have there's some people that want it to be a living celebration if they're alive to know. But I'm going to say the majority of us aren't going to be given the heads up.
Right.
And I've been tempted because my video that I created, like I interviewed, and that's what I do when I do these videos. Like mine was the first one based on the framework of Janae's. My parents were both alive. So I interviewed my parents. I went and found an elementary school teacher, my high school tennis coach, some high school friends, a couple sorority sisters. So there's a whole timeline. It's not like people telling stories over the last 3 to 5 years, which is a lot of things that happen, at a funeral now. And it's a hoot. It's,
Yeah.
you can decide.
Do you get approached for after someone's passed and say, hey, I want to have a party?
Well, that one example was more like a celebration. I'm not going to say no to at need, but I'm really promoting that we do it. We plan it before, ahead of need.
Yeah.
I got to do that one after, but I didn't get to meet her to know truly what she would have said or truly what her wishes were. I think I did a pretty good job based on walking through her house, and she was an artist, and I could pull like things from her art studio and incorporate them at the venue to kind of bring her in. That's, what I would advise. And then I had somebody that had an aneurysm. The friends didn't feel like she was memorialized. And so they asked me they hired me, and then at her 6 months, what was 6 months out from her party hop, we had the celebration of life that they felt like really brought her.
Especially with COVID, unfortunately, when people would pass during 2020 or so, they weren't allowed to have funerals. So I have seen and even been invited to one or two 6 months, year later, celebration of life is what they call it, of course. But it's curious if somebody approaches
COVID,
you for that.
Well, not during COVID. So I thought I was about to party hop in 2018 when I decided I needed to do this. And I will just say, because there's no filter with me, I wasn't going to go to the doctor. I felt like I might have breast cancer, and I wasn't going to go get a diagnosis. I don't know that I would have believed them, and I wouldn't have followed the protocol. That's me personally.
I understand.
So I was like, if that's what's getting ready to happen, I'm not afraid of dying as much as I'm intrigued by it. I'm going to get my stuff in order so that my kids have the experience that I want them to have. Yeah. It was my breast implants that was making me sick. That's why I'm still here, and it wasn't breast cancer. I didn't know about breast implant illness. I found out about it. I'll say that just in case any women out there are wondering, or, because it's misdiagnosed a lot, and there's not a lot of awareness about it. The group that I found out about it from was like 4,000 group on Facebook, and it's like 185 now. So clearly there are a lot of women that are having issues because of those implants. That's what initiated me, having it to begin with. But it goes back to saying we don't all have a sense of urgency. We aren't all going to know.
We're cut different. Mm-hmm. Well, it seems to me like the best thing that we can do, or other avenues like podcast out there, is just to spread the word. How can somebody find more out about you? Is it a website or?
Yes. Okay. So the website, surpriseinvite.com. Mm-hmm. I'm on Instagram at Surprise Invite. I have a Surprise Invite page on Facebook. I'm watching them consistently. So anybody that wants to reach out or message me, I'm there. A consultation is nothing. It's worth the time to invest and sit down and just dream with me. At least you have that for the framework. The videos are the biggest thing that I get hired to do and the most fun. And I'm hired to do those for any celebration of life, for birthdays, for retirement parties, Mother's, Father's Day. It's a gift to let somebody know ahead of time how the world reflects back to them, who they are now, and then have that for later.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's awesome. We'll drop all of the links and everything below in the description, and encourage everybody to check it out. And thank you for sitting with us.
Oh, thank you so much. I love the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Denise, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you for listening. You can reach us at neal at talkabouttownky.com. Neal is a realtor with Judah Real Estate Group. Chad is a partner at Insura Max. You can reach him at chadh@insuramax.com. Check us out on the web at talkabouttownky.com. Go Cards!